I think we're live, Susan.
Hi.
What's going on, everybody? We are back. Everybody missed us, Susan. We didn't do this for 2 months, and I've got multiple people asking, when are you and Susan doing another Babcock Ranch real estate show? So we don't want to deprive our fans out there.
Yes, we need to make sure we do it every month because I do get some complaints out there. Where's that show? So
Yeah, I know. And we've all been busy, but we have a lot of great information to share today. A lot of good stuff. So you're going to want to listen all the way to the end, a full hour of Susan and I. So we are going to talk about our topics for today. Why it's a good time to buy right now. We're also going to talk about why you need to stop listening to the news, because the news is just scaring people and not really giving you the full picture, right? And that's where Susan and I come in. We're boots on the ground, if you will, right? We're living this day in and day out. So we've got much better facts and a better gauge and feel of what's going on. The other thing we want to address is all these people out there think the prices are going to go down and the market's going to crash. And for all those hoping that that is going to happen, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen, but we will address that. And we're also, of course, going to get into what's going on with the new builds, the new construction, the neighborhoods, new neighborhoods, resales. We've got advice for sellers. So no matter whether you're thinking of buying or selling, all the information we are going to share today is going to be applicable to everybody in our hometown Babcock Ranch.
best place to live.
All right, so we're going to start. Why don't we start with why it's a good time to buy right now? Do you hear that background noise?
Yeah. What is that?
Someone's doing work at my house. But why don't you start, Susan, about the interest rates? Let's get into that first, because every time I see that there's going to be a rate hike, everybody comes call me up. What's that going to do to interest rates? How much is the interest rates going to go up? And what happened last week? The rates were hiked, but the interest rates for mortgages went down. So what's going on there?
So, well, I think the biggest part of all this is that people have to realize that the people that make up the interest rates, put all that together, they are in this, right? So they do research, they know, and they predict what the market is going to do prior to the market actually doing it. So there's always, this whole entire year, they are expecting the rates to go up, most of the time 75 basis points. And so the market already prices in what they think the Fed is going to say. So when the Fed comes out and delivers news that is what is expected, then the other news that surrounds it for the day, such as what's going on in the world, which could be enormous topics that impacts, the market. Those types of things do have an effect. So when the interest rates went down and the overall tone was, well, we might not be raising rates as aggressively or as much as, and that was the overall feeling. Well, that was a relief, because that pricing, that 75 basis points, it was already worked into the rate sheets. So basically that relief dropped interest rates, caused interest rates to drop. Now, I will tell you, historically speaking, and I'm going back because I had to think back when, rates used to go up, because they only recently started going up this year, right? So it hadn't been a trend for a while. I had a little uneasy feeling about it, but typically this is what happens every time interest rates go up. They go down. So they go down temporarily, but overall, yes, they do go up. So overall, interest rates are expected to head up this year. But they're not going to be at the times that you think they're going to be. And that's why you need the support and the advice. Sometimes it's hard keeping up with the phone calls the night before a rate hike. Sometimes it's hard to deal with the anxiety of, am I going to wake up tomorrow and rates are going to be 3/4 of a point higher? No, It's not a direct translation. So those rates that come out, those the Fed speaks, it doesn't hit my rate sheets. I don't wake up the next morning and rates are not higher. And I'm sorry, because I do believe some of you were led to believe that. Some of my clients told me, "Oh yeah, I was told by somebody else rates were going to go up Monday." I'm like, "What? How does anybody know that?" So that's a little bit hard. So what you have to do, I call them down days. So it's a term I just made up this year. There hasn't been many down days. This year, there has only been one time that I can recall that interest rates went down for 3 days in a row. Otherwise, they've gone down 2 days and then they've kind of dipped back up. So what happened? Again, we had one of those. We turned the corner. Rates are kind of going back up since they went back down. The news always tells you only bits and pieces of information. So you hear this, but you never hear this, and you never hear this, and you never hear this. So you don't know where you're at. And I think that's causing a little bit of anxiety, because all you ever hear is rates going up. So you're thinking, gosh, rates must be 7 now, right? Because they were like 6 a month, a month and a half ago. So they got to be 7 now, almost, right? No.
You just locked in my client to 4.6% the other day. Like that's.
Yes, some people are able to buy down their interest rates. And so, yeah, the rates are in the 4s are still possible for some people. What is your credit score? How long are we locking that interest rate? Are you willing to pay points to get a lower rate? But all those things come into play. And there are people locking in the 4s. So that rate is not a bad rate. So forget COVID, right? Before COVID, what was the lowest rates? 4s, guys, 4s. So we can get there. And the cool thing is that now you have the ability to talk to your buyer's agent and have them on at least resales, maybe negotiate some of this stuff. So maybe you can get that seller to pay down a point or so and get you those rates and get you closer to those rates to get to where you could afford these houses a few months ago. So definitely reach out if you're thinking about, selling and trying to buy a home more suitable for you, because it's really not the end of the world, especially if for some reason you missed out on refinancing. The interest rates are probably similar to what you ended up getting before you revised, to the 2s where they were at all-time COVID lows, right? Because before that period of time where they were temporarily lower, they were never that low. So 4s have always been amazing rates. Now, the rates have been a little crazy because I think the market gets spooked out too. So in the last week, you may have heard variations of rates ranging from almost as much as a percentage point in difference. And sometimes it's hard to decide when to lock in. And that's why, with my company yesterday, I relocked a client 1 percentage point lower than what they had locked for. And the reason for that was because the rates had gone down from the time we locked them. We did a little bit of a long-term lock on them. But hey, you know what? We called them on a good day and we gave them something better. And that's something unique to us. I'm always looking out for you. I know where your rates are. So if you're my client, you're on my radar. And a lot of other banks, you can ask them, they might tell you about a float down. There's a difference between a float down and a relock. Okay. So a float down is you are locked at this company and you can float down to their lower interest rate. It's usually not as competitive as if you were to do a complete relock. And we do offer that for anybody that has any questions. Also, long-term locks. Yes, I still do believe long-term locks are good. There's nothing about that, something that makes you feel more secure at night. You can sleep at night knowing your rate's not going to be higher than this. Worst case scenario, this is what you're going to get a year from now. So my locks do extend up to a year. So you can make sure you're still qualifying. Yeah.
And if you do a rate lock for a year, you can still do what you just did for our client there, where you got her down 1%, right?
Yes. Depending on the time that they want to lock again, they'll either have to do a relock or they can possibly do a float down. Yes.
Now, how many times can you, so this is good to know for the new construction buyers who are building from dirt, right? Because a lot of the builders right now, if you go from dirt, I'm talking mainly, I guess, Pulte really is the only dirt builder in the community right now. But Pulte right now is out to like a year for a house. So
Yeah.
you need a year rate lock if you were to go with Susan. So like how many times could they relock during that year? If say things change and the rates start going down, is it possible to do that more than one time?
Yeah. So we have different investors, and some of our investors allow us to lock for a year. Some of them are 9 months, 6 months. I even have one of the really cool ones that I have is a free 6 month rate lock. And when I say free, I mean they don't charge you anything up front. So there's a lot that goes into to relocks. I won't go into it unless you want me to get very specific, and I'll go over each scenario with you. But you can technically relock while I still have banks available, I guess, in a sense. But usually on a long-term lock, more than 90 days, there is an upfront cost. Sometimes that upfront cost is refundable. Sometimes it's not. Those are the options I go over with you. But as far as wanting to relock again, it depends. So usually a good time to look into it. I mean, we just kind of overall, there's one overall pay attention to rates. Rates are like incredibly low today. Well, everyone has to be relooked at. So I'll go through and look at everybody if that happens where interest rates are really low. But if that doesn't happen, then the general guide, John, I would say is throw that lock on at 9 months. We'll take a quick peek. At 6 months, we'll take a quick peek. At 3 months, we take a quick peek. And basically at 3 months, I would say if for any reason rates are lower, then I would definitely grab that because there's no cost to that. So it's going to be very specified to each individual. But yes, it's just good to protect their payments for sure.
Right. Well, so we do have a lot of good advantages for mortgages right now. I think it's not as bad as like the news is making it. And let's like roll this into why it's a good time to buy a house right now. So what do you say about why it's a good time to buy right now?
Well, I think it's a good time to buy. Well, besides the rates, because the rates aren't bad, right? They're not terrible. So the rates are good. Um, another time, another reason to buy is that I feel that specifically with, resale, you have the ability to do things you couldn't do. Okay. So about a year ago, if you were a veteran and you had no money to put down, it would be hard for you to buy a house. Now, um, people are open to offers, to making people to come together. I have a lot more calls on, oh, how do I structure this? How do I put this together? So before, it was just people, it felt like, I should say, it was just people that had a lot of money that could throw money away if a house didn't appraise, right? Like they just people that had all this $50,000 in the bank you need to put down to buy a house. Like who has that as a first time buyer? Not many people.
Right.
But now these new first time buyers have a chance. So if you're out there and you're just kind of, I'm just defeated, don't be defeated anymore. Now is the time that you need us in the sense of let us help you figure out how to get into a house. There's a fantastic program out there for hometown heroes. They're giving away $15,000 towards closing costs or down payment. When I say giving away, I call it a silent second. And basically what that means is that you don't pay that. There's no interest rate. You don't have to pay payments back on this 15,000 unless you sell or refinance that house. So, there are people that are selling homes that might be more willing to take a house off the market with $500,000 down payment. Who knows? You are in the position to make your offer as you wish. You don't have to be pressured to make an offer within 3 seconds of seeing the house. So it's a seller's market, but the buyers are actually being considered now. So if you were someone who wasn't considered, or you're someone that doesn't have a lot of money, we can still help you. So
Right. I think there's a lot more room to make a deal because it's definitely slower right now, but it's slower because of I think two things, the interest rates and inflation and the scare and anxiety that people are getting with that, number one. And number two, I think we're back to like your typical Florida summer where usually it does get slower. We don't have the snowbirds here anymore. I mean, really the last 2 years, people stayed in Florida. They didn't want to go back home because of COVID. So there's less people in the area right now. Like you can feel that just driving on the roads and going down to the stores in Fort Myers and whatnot. And then the second thing is we also had, people don't realize this, we had these unprecedented waves of summer tourism in Florida the last 2 years. Like hotels and like people wanted to go somewhere, and what state was open? Florida. So I think, we're back to like that normal Florida summer real estate market. And so that in combination with the buyers just kind of, the demand's still there with the buyers, but they're just kind of laying low right now, I think, because of the fear of the interest rates. And then, again, like the media, you turn on the TV and they're talking about the real estate market. I guarantee you, if you watch it long enough, you're going to hear about why the market's going to crash. But we don't think that's going to happen. But anyway, the effect of that, getting to the resales is that all the people with resales are dropping prices because they think that's what is needed to get it done. And I think, the answer is on that, like, it depends. Do you really need to get it done? I mean, everybody's situation is different. Like if you don't have to move or you've got an investment, I don't think you should be dropping prices.
Well, John, I have a house for sale that I didn't drop the price. And I want to explain to you my thought process behind this. Yeah. Will I take, a little less than what I have on there? Of course. What's the thought process behind this? I want to have every advantage available to someone who's coming to buy my house. If my house is listed at $650, you need me to pay your closing costs. You need me to buy you a 4% rate. What do you need? Let me make it happen. And so, yeah. So by keeping that, and just to be clear, my house appraised for much higher than $650. So we have the value there to support it. So if someone is looking for, to get in with no money down, or somebody is looking for, the seller to pay the closing costs, and those closing costs might be high, we can make those things happen. You can do those things with resales. So, so that's the thought process behind that. And I think one of the other things too is that, so I hear a lot on the other end, right before people make offers. What are these people saying? I'm saying this to sellers. This is my audience. Okay. Buyers say this to me. Oh, well, this house just dropped $25,000. It's only been on the market for 7 days. They're super desperate. I'm going to offer them $30,000 below that. So it gives off, and this is what I hear over and over again. And I'm like, okay, maybe they're right. Maybe sellers are scared to a certain point and they are willing to take less. So go ahead, make your offer, do it. Right. But if the market turns back up, those sellers are not going to be, eager to negotiate anymore either. So it's just really interesting now that, but just be careful and don't go crazy. Meaning, if you set a price for your home, because there's smaller amounts of buyers, although again, there's still more buyers than sellers, which we'll get into, but a little less than there was because of everything we just went over, right? So what do you have to do? That 1 day on the market now becomes 2 weeks on the market, right? It's because it takes a little bit more exposure time. So you start dropping your house 3 days after it's on the market. Yeah. Nobody even saw it.
You're setting yourself for disappointment, like big time.
Absolutely.
And I've learned this the hard way, unfortunately, with some listings, and it's so true. Like every buyer, the second they, I had this golf course listing, and I was like, the buyers that I did talk to, this one buyer wanted the house so bad, and she kept coming back to me and was like, she was so confident the prices were going to keep dropping to where she wanted to pay for the home. Now, it didn't drop that low, and somebody else picked it up higher than her. But that's like the mentality where I think the buyers in the market right now, they're thinking they can get a deal on anything. The second they see the price drop, they're thinking deals. And I mean, it's good for the buyers right now, and that's why it is a good time to buy, because this is like the seller. A lot of the sellers are scared. You don't have too many like sellers like yourself, Susan, that are willing to stick it out. And for buyers, yeah, I think we can go to anybody really, and talk. We can negotiate, right? We can negotiate not only on the resales, but even the builders are starting to negotiate a little bit. So there's wiggle room. Like they're being, we'll get into more of the new construction, but on the resales, I think if you need to move soon, like this is a good time to come in and get something, and either buy your rates down or get a little bit better price. But don't expect the prices, I think, to drop much further. I don't believe that's going to happen just because of the supply and demand, right? There's just not enough supply of houses. We just have a little blip in the marketplace. Should I bring up the chart right now?
Yeah, I think it's a good time.
All right. So this chart right here, let's actually give you guys some data. This goes all the way back to 2009, right? Essentially, the real estate market crashed back in 2007. It sucked for 2008. It even sucked through 2010. But look at how much the average sales price appreciated from 2010 to January of 2021, right? It took about, that's 11 years for the average price in our MLS to go up to basically more than double. And then look though, from January 21, like when things started really getting crazy, to like May, when I feel that's when the market peaked, right? Look how fast that happened. So we're just experiencing like a little blip. But if you look at markets over time, guys, like there's always little blips, right? Like little blip here, little blip here. Things go like up and down in cycling. So I think right now we're just in one of those cycles where it's dipping back down. But most likely it's going to start going back up and trending forward again. And the reason why is because of supply. Here's another little thing. So if we want to talk about supply, month supply here. So this is going back max, right? Like look at 2007 when the housing market crashed, or 2009 when it was still doing terrible. 66 months of supply. Okay, look at where we are today. 2 months of supply for the entire MLS.
Wow. That's a pretty big difference there.
That's a pretty big difference. And it is a little slower in Babcock Ranch, right? Let's just tighten this up a little. We're at 2.8 months of supply in Babcock Ranch. So we're a little more supply comparatively to the average of the entire MLS. But that, it's not, we still have low supply here in Babcock Ranch as well. And that's why when we talk about prices and why the market's not going to crash, this is why. It's because of the supply. And here's some other data. We're going to start giving a lot of data to people just so they can get the picture and stop listening to the news. We have 128 million households in the United States today, right? And everybody is comparatively looking at 2007 when the market crashed and comparing it to today, right? And why is that comparison going on? Because of like the rapid appreciation of prices that we have, right? But in 2007, we had 116 million households. Now, let's talk about housing starts, though. In 2007, there were 2.1 million housing starts. And in 2022, today, we've had 1.4 million housing starts today. So there's less housing starts going on today. And probably some of that has to do with the supply chain still being in shambles, right? But here's the big clincher. The inventory that's available today is half and less than what it was in 2007. So that's why in 2007 the market crashed, right? There was just way too much supply, and then with everything else going on, it just died. But we don't have the supply issue that we had in 2007, and prices work on supply and demand. Okay, that's the only thing that really drives housing prices like significantly is the supply and demand, right? When we've got more buyers than sellers, prices go up. And when there's more sellers than buyers, prices go down. We still have more buyers than sellers today in Southwest Florida and all of the United States. And of course, I'm sure there's pockets where, it may be the inverse of that. But so with all this data here, guys, like the prices are going to slowly start going back up again. We're just in a little blip right now where, because of the interest rates, inflation, and all that fear that's coming with that and anxiety, it's a little bit down. But people are, they're not, you got to be, I think, for the sellers, you got to be patient right now, because I'm not selling homes in a weekend anymore, or 2 or 3 days. Like homes, I think right now you gotta, if you're gonna sell your home and you want to get the right price, the price where, like, close to where the market topped out at a little bit ago in May, like you're going to have to be patient.
Yeah, and reasonable. Like
Reasonable.
Not everybody has huge, earnest money deposits to put down, and you just have to be more flexible. And I think a lot of sellers are being more flexible, as long as the offers are being presented to them. But you have to be with a good agent and mortgage person to put that deal together for you. The other thing too is that in this area, you could theoretically, especially if you were within income limits, buy a house with no money down without that hero stuff that I was talking about. So I think there's just a lot more opportunity for people. A lot of millennials need to buy houses still. There's a ton of possible ways to put these things together.
That millennial thing is a big factor in housing prices moving forward. All the millennials are starting to buy houses. I'm a millennial, believe it or not, Susan.
You are.
But I'm the first year of millennials. Like when you look at generational gaps, 1982, 1983 is the start of the millennials, believe it or not. I was born in 83. So, I just bought my first house 2 years ago. So but people that are, in their mid 30s, right? That's like when now a lot of those millennials in their, early to mid 30s are starting to buy homes. And there's still a wave of like 10 years of that to come.
That's surprising to me that you just bought your first house 2 years ago. Isn't that that's so amazing to know. I bought my first house. I think I was 24 maybe. And I bought a 4-family back in Rhode Island with no money down because I didn't have any money.
Yeah, and what year?
2001, I think.
2001. So
I'm an exennial, by the way. There's a group between Generation X and Millennial, and it's called exennial. So I'm in that little tiny group. But yes, home ownership. You know what I mean? I bought a 4-unit with no money down back then, and have bought several houses since. But I do feel that a lot of millennials are getting out there and buying houses now. But the one thing is that they're typically not used to rates that are higher. So, like when I say higher interest rates, I'm talking anything like in the 6s. Like most millennials are not used to a 6% mortgage rate or hearing of that, because it's been so long since rates were 6. Rates are not 6 now, but they're not really far from it, especially if your credit is poor. So, or you need a specified, product or whatever. But having said that, I think that, interest rates 5 and below, somewhere in the 5 range and below, are generally competitive. So I think that's just more in their head that they feel like it's a higher interest rate because they haven't seen the overall what the rest of us have seen, interest rates. When I started doing mortgages, the rates were like 8.5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is not just millennials, but all the baby boomers just started recently retiring in the last few years, right? So there's going to be, I think, generational gaps are about 16 to 18 years, and like I've seen different data suggesting how long a generational gap is and like what years belong in each generational gap, but the baby boomers, like the start of the baby boomers in the early 50s, like those people are turning 70 now, right? And people are working longer, they're living longer. So you've got this huge wave of people starting that are going to be retiring also in the next 10 years. And a lot of those people retiring, they're going to leave up north or wherever they're from and buy in Florida, right? Florida is such a huge destination for retirees for the tax advantages, number one, and like the weather, number two, right?
Yeah.
So I just think and then have you ever looked at like the population projections for Charlotte and Lee County
No.
and Collier County, Southwest Florida? Let me see if I can find some. I should have bookmarked this.
Yeah, the thing is that sometimes we look at stuff as permanent, right? Like, oh, I want my dream home. But when you realize it's at different parts of your life, you need different houses. I mean, we bought a 4,200 square foot home because there's 6 of us here. When my kids are older, I may sell my house and buy another one. So there's always real estate. There's always different needs that you go through.
Right.
And this particular area, I mean, even now, John, a huge portion of my clients are people moving from out of state. They're still moving in here. We
Yep.
still have, because the thing is that, and I did it in 2008. So when I closed my mortgage company, I had the chance of working anywhere. So I chose to move to Florida because it was warm and a beautiful weather compared to where I was. So when people eventually caught up with them, that was in 2008, right? So eventually, as COVID happened, and now still, as people still get to work more remotely, they think, well, why am I living in this state when I could be living in, literally, it's usually Florida as the example, right? So why wouldn't they want to come here? And they're still coming here. People are still moving here with their remote positions. Lots of medical people moving here. So why don't you tell us, do you have those stats on the growth?
So there's 1,800 counties in the United States across the 50 states. And according to the Business Observer, Lee County was ranked 9th for most new residents for a county. And then when you look at metro areas, Punta Gorda was ranked 4th in fastest growing metro areas with new residents. Babcock Ranch, right, is part of those stats. And Cape Coral, Fort Myers was ranked 9th.
Yeah.
So we've got like the fastest growing counties and metro areas, like.
And did you know that Babcock Ranch made it to number 10 in the country for number of sales for master communities? And that's impressive because of how fast it's jumping, right? So it got to 10 pretty quickly.
Yeah, so it went from 28, I believe, to 10.
Yeah, I mean, that's very impressive.
Right. So it's just more and more stats and data that shows that we're going to have more and more demand. And, who knows how long it's going to take for the supply chain figure it out, or whatever the supply chain needs to do, right? And speaking about the supply chain, that's another reason why I think the market prices aren't, besides these little natural blips that happen over time, like we're experiencing right now, the cost of materials really have not gone down yet to make a home, right? Labor's more expensive because, and this, we could probably do a whole show on like labor right now, but there's less people working. Yeah, like the government's saying, oh, we've got record number of jobs and stuff, but I also read there's record number of people choosing not to work today. So like the labor, and I don't know, obviously all the sources out there and what they say on the news, it's hard to trust and know for sure, but I know what people are telling me on the ground, right? I know people that own construction companies here locally, and their biggest challenge is finding people and finding laborers, right? I know a big commercial construction company. I'm building out a commercial space right now, and one of the contractors on my job, they literally got up and drove to Tennessee because they could make more money, much more money at a job up in Tennessee. So there's less labor supply and there's more demand. So the laborers are being actually pretty picky and choosy, which is causing labor rates to go up. So it costs more money to build a house now today than it ever did. And all the things with the supply. Another good example, I was talking to the gentleman building my pool. So I was like, I asked him, I said, is the demand for new pool buyers, like, has it gone down yet because of, because of just the prices going up so much and because of the market being like a little slower? I asked him this recently, and he told me, he says the demand's down a little bit, nothing drastic. The demand is down. So I said, okay, good. So does that mean my pool price is going to go down? And he said, no, not at all. He's like, the prices for all my supplies and my labor keep going up. So I can't drop the price of my pools now. In fact, I got to maybe, he locked me in. So, he said he wasn't raising prices on me, but every new thing he quotes, it's, he's got to tack on a little more month by month. Yeah. So the same thing's got to be happening with the houses here and these builders.
Yeah, I know people are waiting a little bit of time for permitting and stuff like that too. So
sure. Well, the demand though is still high. It maybe temporarily went down, but the demand for all these things is still very high. And with the supply chain, it's not helping the supply chain get any better. So
I mean, and if you look at it like percentage wise, right? Again, I'm making this number up, but let's say it's down 10 or 20%. I mean, you still have such a backlog that you can't even feel that because you're so far back.
Yeah.
For those companies that need those types of things. And if you do want a pool, Pulte is still the only builder, from my understanding, that is allowing you to put in a pool. Otherwise, your best bet is either to buy a resale that has one, or buy a resale and start that permitting process right away. So at least you don't have to wait the build time plus the.
I still think there's a lot more value in going. I think there will always be more value in going with a private pool builder than a builder. Mm-hmm. But what's the pros and cons? You go with the builder. Pro is your pool is going to be done when your house is done. Mm-hmm. The con is you're going to get less pool for that same amount of money, right? And then you go with a private builder, you got to wait till your house is finished to start. And right now, like, building a pool is probably, you got to really be realistic. It's a 9 to 12 month process. Mm-hmm. This day. So that's a big negative for a lot of people who are impatient. And most people are impatient and don't want to wait. I'm getting impatient as hell, and I've been waiting for my pool to start, and it's a month behind already. But
is that why you were floating in my pool last night?
Yep, exactly. That's right. But what can I do about it? Nothing. It is what it is. The permits are being held up right now with the county. My pool builder can't make the permit process go any faster, right? So I can't hold it against him. But it's just this is the market we live in today. So
it is, yeah. It definitely is. What else do we have on the topic?
Why don't we go into talk about the new neighborhoods, new builds, what's going on in the neighborhoods, the new construction roundup.
I'm really happy to hear that we have some lower price points for people. First time buyers. can easily or should easier to qualify for these price points. So why don't you tell us about the new community?
Yeah, well, number one, new communities. We've got Crescent Lakes by Meritage opening. So I'm pretty sure they're pricing whatever it was at the tail end of Crescent Grove, I think is going to roll into Crescent Lakes. So you'll still be able to buy a single family home in the low threes with Meritage, which is nice. They've got a few models like the Finch, the Robin, the Canary, smaller homes that you should be able to get all in under 400, in that 3 to 400 range. Um, so that's cool. Meritage, I was actually there yesterday because they do have 2 homes left in Crescent Grove that they have been unable to sell. And I was very surprised they were willing to negotiate a lot of things. I was able to, and unfortunately my buyer didn't pull the trigger, but they upped the amount of closing cost assistance they offered. They told him he did not have to put 10% down. They actually, because he's in the process of selling his home, so they offered to do $10,000 down just to lock in the contract, and then when he sold his house, they said let's just do like another 15,000 down. So he would have only had to put $25,000 down instead of $41,000 down, which would have been 10%. So I was very surprised they were willing, that's just the story right now in all the neighborhoods. The builders are a little slower now. Pulte is offering a lot more incentives right now. I did a deal at the end of June, like the last day of June, I signed a contract in Northridge, and they gave my buyer $14,000 in closing cost assistance, which pretty much will leave him with, probably 2-3 grand most of closing costs. So, that's what the builders are doing. They're not dropping the prices. They're just giving you more incentives to buy right now. So that's another thing to, all these people thinking the prices are going to crash. They're not, but you can go into all the builders right now and get more incentives. Except Lennar. I've yet to see Lennar offer any more. They're up to $5,000 now in closing cost assistance. Now, I think that's going to change because I've had the Lennar guys they always call me to ask me what the other builders are doing. So I know that information's getting relayed to the managers at Lennar. So will they make a move soon and offer more incentives? I think they're going to have to, because I know the sales have been slower in Trails Edge. And Lennar is also getting ready for Tucker's Cove. So this is going to be their massive 3,500 home neighborhood that's going northeast of Babcock National.
So what I'm hearing is that when we have these pockets of opportunity with these 3 builders, they're kind of, Pulte has spec homes, meaning that they built homes purposely. These were not contracts that fell through, financing that fell through. This was pre-planned spec homes from the start of these specific builds throughout Babcock, and they will be dropping them with short-term sales. So they'll have those, some good deals on those. You have Crescent Grove, which has 2 that's going to be finishing by January. I think they're looking to wrap everything up by the end of the year. And then you have Lennar, who's finishing up. So when these guys are trying to wrap up and move on, what do? They give you good deals, right? Like, look at what Meritage is. They got 2 houses. They want to be done. They want to move on.
Yeah.
So, so if you, and these things come and go, some of the stuff goes quick. So definitely reach out to us, because we can let you know when these opportunities come up.
I know. We've got the pulse on what's going on with every builder at every time. So
yeah, and it changes fast.
Yeah. So Lennar, though, I believe they still have about 100 homes left for sale in Trails Edge. So
yeah,
it's going to take them a little bit to go through. Now that new neighborhood, Tucker's Cove, I know it's going to be 3,500 homes, another golf course there. So I'm not sure how they're splitting that up. Like,
right.
if it's going to be one big community where only a select amount of homes get the golf course membership. I heard the lagoon's going in there. Did you hear that?
Oh, how can you not hear about the lagoon, right?
Well, that's where I think the lagoon's going, in that Tucker's Cove. So is that going to be open to like all of Babcock, or is it going to be just for the residents in Tucker's Cove? I'm not sure yet. There's no formal announcement.
So I haven't heard that Lennar was a part of that.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I don't know yet either. I haven't heard. Huh?
I said these are rumors, guys.
They're all rumors. I mean,
they're all rumors. But the two rumors I heard was that it wasn't Lennar, and then I heard that it was, you had to be and belong to the community.
Sure.
But I don't know.
That Tucker's Cove, they are starting the land development, I heard, this month.
That's exciting.
So they're going to be, like
one important
the land, getting it prepped, and so that community may come online for sales in like about maybe next summer. I don't know. It's hard to say.
So we have about 1,000. You said about 1,000 homes left.
100 homes left in Trails Edge.
How many? 100?
I think there's around 100 homes left in Trails Edge.
Okay, so of those 100 homes, there's less than 10 that are 2 stories.
I think even less.
Yeah. So
there are no more Majesticas. So anybody wants a Majestica, come talk to me, because I have a Majestica listed. And then let me see here. I think there's one Washingtonia left. So anybody who wants to live with their parents or their in-laws. Let's see. Available executive homes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 4 foxtails and 1 coconut. And for the executive homes, the 2-car garages, and then there's 1 Washingtonia manor home. So I believe so there's 6 right now available 2 stories that you can buy.
So
I think though there may be like a few more foxtails. There might be like 2 or 3 more foxtails that are they just haven't like done the footers yet and poured the concrete and all that stuff. So they're not gonna right now with Lennar. The cool thing is, like, as long as it's under construction, they will sell you the lot. Now they're gonna try and sell you things that are further along first, and they're gonna try and steer you towards that. But that's where I know Lennar's being a little open to like negotiation, is that if you come in and want a Sylvester, and they're going to show you like 2 or 3 Sylvesters and hope you buy that. If you don't like any, then they're going to like take you to the other Sylvesters that are coming up for sale here. So
yeah, and that's the thing, is that sometimes Lennar is giving away deals or really good stuff because they have a very short amount of time. So they're trying to, they need to meet their numbers for their quarters. They need a house sold in 3 weeks, so that's
right. You get that here and there, right? Like they, true story, the Majesticas, right? People were bidding over $700,000 for the Majesticas at one point. And then Lennar needed to make sales. Right? And what was it? Their end of July is like the end of their quarter, is it?
August, yeah. End of August. So they have to close by the end of August. So they probably wanted them sold by the end of July to give a month to close.
Oh, yeah, right. So the 5 Majesticas that they had left, they
gave them away.
They stopped the bidding. They gave them away. So 5 people like got a Majestica for like an incredible price and
with equity. Because the thing is that the market's not there right now for those prices. So anybody that's reselling those homes, they're not going to give them away at those prices. There's no more Majesticas. It's done. It's over. Those people got the deals. And it's the same thing. There's, again, right now, like 8, maybe a couple more, 10 or less, right? 2 stories and all. Then if you need a 2-story, it's going to take you over a year to build one. So, so definitely take a peek at those if you need them. There's some 2 stories on the market, but that's all that's really out there. And I think as far as the different types out there, you had said 1 coconut left, and then the rest are smaller. Besides that 1 Washingtonia, because the foxtail is just a little bit smaller. floor plan. Still fairly large though, 2,500 square feet.
Yes.
In any event, I think that that's going to be something that'll be in demand for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Because really, I don't know how many I'm not sure. I didn't ask about Crescent Lakes. If Crescent Grove, when Meritage built that, they pre-planned the whole neighborhood. I'm not sure if Meritage is doing that again. I'm thinking they probably are. And I should go into the building department records and see if what they did do. So I'm guessing they probably are starting out that neighborhood with, with a lot of it pre-planned. But for 2 stories, yeah, the 2 stories are going to be very, I think, in demand here eventually. Because the other option, you can go to Pulte. Pulte did drop their restrictions on their 2-story homes. So you can pretty much right now, because of they're lacking the demand, you can go whatever lots are available. You can pick whichever 2-story you want. But as you know, Pulte prices are a lot higher. So that's why I don't think they sell as fast as Lennar or Meritage, right? Just their price point and everything is much higher, how they position themselves to be. So
Sure. I mean, you're talking a bigger pool of people can afford less. So
yeah, exactly.
that way.
We should talk about D.R. Horton,
Yes.
because I think these villas are going to do very well for them. They have impact glass, which I think is awesome. That's a great feature to throw into any home. So that's going to make it a lot more digestible for people, because I know people hate shutters, but it's not the end of the world in Southwest Florida, because most likely you're going to put those shutters up like once every 8 to 10 years at most.
It's super rare, but I think that especially if you're an older couple, or even a younger couple, like you've never owned a home. I mean, you don't have to worry about putting shutters up. I think that's great.
Yeah, and D.R. Horton, I mean, they came out with 10% closing costs. So I know I think we're heading into like a really good place for buyers in the next 2 years in Babcock Ranch, just because up until now, we've had Lennar, Pulte, and Meritage running the show, right? Doing basically whatever they wanted to do. Now we've got D.R. Horton here, who's like a direct competitor to Lennar, and D.R. Horton's building a big community with 500 homes. After that's going to open up probably like next year. Sometimes they're telling me right now it's like 12 to 18 months out, but that's going to be a big community that's directly going to compete with Lennar. You've got Christopher Allen coming in here. They're going to be in like that same price bracket, right? You've got Toll Brothers that I think is going to be more of a like competitor to Pulte. You've got William Ryan Homes coming in, which again, I think their price points are a little higher. So they're probably going to compete with like Pulte and then Toll Brothers. And then also, we're just going to have a lot more builders and a lot more options like next year, the year after. So that's going to be good for buyers, because the builders are going to have to now compete like with each other for every sale. So I just see the incentive. I think it's going to be good no matter like what the market is. I think the builders are going to have to offer better incentives. They're going to have to sharpen up like their construction, right? Because we all know some builders do construction better than others, especially when it comes to time to those final walkthroughs. So I think their construction is going to have to be better. Their incentives, their programs are going to have to be better. And it's just overall going to be better for all the consumers and buyers coming into Babcock Ranch. So I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If they give incentives, I mean, I remember they used to give incentives sometimes like, half off design and different things like that. So you might get some incentives.
I got $30,000 off my first Lennar home.
Yeah.
At the time. So, how much incentive will come back, it's hard to know, but they're all going to have to sharpen up their pencils to compete. So I'm hoping more. I'm hoping even more builders come in. I heard Taylor Morrison is like talking about coming in here, and I heard rumors of Neil. I don't know if Neil's made a deal yet to come in here, but I mean, we just passed 2,000 homes sold.
We got a long way to go.
17,000 homes sold. We're going to need a number of builders. So that's just going to be good for all the buyers coming in here. And I think for the community, right? More diversity, more choice. I mean, at one point I was scared like this was going to turn into Lennar Ranch and not be Babcock Ranch because, up until this point, Lennar sold probably 60% of Babcock Ranch. And it allowed them to do basically whatever they wanted, like, because there was not enough competition. So that's going to change soon here. And it's going to be better for everybody overall.
Yeah. So the future is definitely bright for Babcock, especially with all these awesome things coming in, tree houses, and I don't know, just some fun.
Some zip lines, more like parks, amphitheaters.
Sounds amazing. I'm glad I live here.
It's still I think if you've got a long-term outlook on Babcock Ranch, like you are going to do well with your home purchase. This place has again, we just talked about the data of all the people moving here and the population projections. Like, Babcock Ranch is going to fulfill just only so much of that demand, right? But this place, I think, nothing's really going to stop it from getting to where they want to be, which is that 19,500 front doors and a fully, community with everything you need in it. And the surrounding areas too, just for people to know, are growing. Like D.R. Horton bought that Bayshore Ranch. You've probably driven past that many times, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're putting 300 homes in there. And Lennar and Meritage have communities going in on Bayshore Road. So I think there's also going to be a lot, and they're expanding Brightwater. So there's going to be a lot more communities too coming into the local areas in North Fort Myers. I heard Neil got a community there along Bayshore Road somewhere. There's also on the other side of the Caloosahatchee and Fort Myers Shores, Meritage bought a community, some land down there to build. So a lot of new construction just coming to this whole general area. And, there's some stuff out in Alva, that Serengeti place, Lennar bought. So it's only going to go up. It's only going to keep going up steadily over time, guys. We're going to have little blips over time, but, the trajectory, I got to get my camera right. It's going to be like this over time. So.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a lot of exciting things happening at Babcock. People love it here, and I love the diversity. You have all age groups. The one other thing I think is really big, my daughter is going to be starting kindergarten here. I'm going to try not to cry on camera. Of course, you have to realize my son just graduated college. That might be why I'm crying, because he just I'm back in kindergarten. Okay, so one of the things I want to point out is that I'm from Rhode Island, and in Rhode Island, you go to your neighborhood school. When we moved to Florida and my son was in 5th grade, they wanted to bus him to school, and we had never even gone on a bus. We usually walked to school. So the bus process was, they told me they would pick him up at 5 a.m. They would drop him off at 5:30 at night. And it really impacted me, because I didn't want to see my kid be on a bus an hour and a half each way. Anyway, I ended up homeschooling him for the rest of that year. And then the next year sent him to Canterbury, which is a private school. What I loved about Babcock Ranch is that my daughter's going to go to school walking distance again. Yeah. And that's one thing that you're able to do now that you couldn't do before in other Florida cities, because there's school choice and stuff. So you don't necessarily get into it. Here, although they don't guarantee that you can get in, to the school. There's no guarantees per se. The school is building, they're growing, and there's more schools coming. And from what I understand, most people that I don't think I've ever heard anyone say they didn't get in that they wanted to. I could be wrong, but I haven't heard that yet.
I did like a few times. I think the lower grades, it's a bit more populated, like kindergarten, first grade. And
Yeah.
it's more people who like decide to move here after the lottery process is over.
Yes, I could see that definitely being a little bit more challenging after the process is over. But especially with kindergarten, because there's new seats available every year. It's really great to be able to go to a school. And I heard that they're building 4 more. So it's really wonderful to have something nearby that you can walk to if that's what your expectation of going to a neighborhood school is.
Right.
So for me, moving from out of state, going to Florida and being shocked that my kid would have to be bused an hour and a half, it's quite a relief that she doesn't need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one of many good reasons to live in Babcock Ranch.
For sure, for sure.
Well, I don't know if anybody has any questions. We just got a lot of good comments, but no questions this time around, Susan. So
Okay.
I guess we'll hang it up now, and we will see you guys all again in September.
All right.
I promise we're never going to do a 2-month hiatus ever again. So,
Ever.
Ever.
Have a good one.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.